When I sat down to watch this film about a musical genius, I must admit, I had a prejudice. I expected to be exposed not only to his life but also to the ego that, even after death, somehow continued to live on. Although it's not an autobiography, I wasn't prepared for how captivating a story told through Salieri's perspective, shaped by his emotions, could be. If it had been a traditional autobiography, perhaps we would have been drawn into a dramatic, even tragic tale, his private life, his childhood, adolescence, youth, family conflicts, and professional frustrations. That would have made us connect with the protagonist through a sense of pity. Instead, this film dares to challenge our sense of empathy and admiration, and still manages to make us love a character. And not just any character, but one of the greatest musical minds the world has ever known. Let me be clear. I don't claim to overstep my bounds. My admiration for Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart goes far beyond the lens of a coming-of-age story. He was one of the rare souls who could hear the music within humanity and translate it into something divine. To say he composed to the rhythm of the heart would not be an exaggeration, but I'm not sure Mozart can simply be praised. In fact, only praising him feels like a disservice. Even in the most impoverished corners of the world, Mozart is somehow still present. They may not have heard his music, but they've heard his name, or at least something that echoes from one of his melodies. Back to the film, we witness how devoutly Christian court composer Salieri is transformed by his admiration for a musical prodigy. It's a descent from God to the devil, from virtue to vice, from righteousness to spiritual ruin. Maybe there's a Salieri in all of us, still dormant, only because we've yet to meet our own Mozart. Or perhaps the goodness in us remains dominant, simply because it hasn't been tested yet. Put yourself in Salieri's shoes. What if Mozart were your friend? Or worse, your rival? What if he asked for your help getting his work to the court? What if you realized that he was undeniably more talented than you? What would you do? Salieri lived to please the court with his compositions. But with admiration came envy, and when confronted with a divine talent, he chose not the God he worshipped for years, but the fear that haunted him. And how harshly do we judge him for that? Salieri's most burning question to God was simple. How can someone like Mozart, so vulgar, so reckless, be gifted with such divine talent? Haven't we asked similar questions in our own lives? Don't we all have our own Mozarts, those we envy, those we compare ourselves to? Maybe what ignites the jealousy, even the inner demon, is that very act of comparison. Now you might say, I would never do something like that. But would you really? From Salieri's viewpoint, Mozart seems immoral, undisciplined, and undeserving of success. Yet, deep down, Salieri harbors undeniable admiration for him. We all carry both good and evil within us. Like the yin-yang philosophy from the East, or the Abel and Cain parable in theology. And it's we who decide which side to nurture. As you're watching this video, maybe a flurry of thoughts is passing through your mind, some supportive, some skeptical. Maybe you're unsure whether to like or subscribe. Maybe you're even thinking, I could do better. Because let's face it, criticism is always easier than creation. Just like in Mozart's story, Salieri hides behind royal favor to criticize, while internally waging war against his own admiration. His envy escalates to the point where he attempts to exploit Mozart's weaknesses, his financial troubles, his vulnerabilities. But what Salieri truly desires is Mozart's approval, not his downfall. And there it is, the universal truth. We often become what we criticize the most. Our enemies plant the seeds of our transformation. While Salieri lived in comfort with inner torment, Mozart clung to life through his notes, even as poverty gripped him. We all want the ease of Salieri's life, because becoming Mozart is hard. Mozart means being different, taking risks. It means rejecting convention, education, family, royalty, reputation, and becoming a rebellion in motion. It means living a short but creatively rich life. It means trusting Salieri with your manuscripts, unaware of the deception brewing beneath. In this film told from Salieri's gaze, beyond the emotional turmoil, what also stands out is 18th century Vienna's deep relationship with art and culture. Operas, concertos, grand spectacles, and not just the aristocracy. The common people were engaged in the arts too. Today's leaders and societies. Art is no longer something to prioritize. Many see it as unnecessary. The film also portrays the conflict between the court and the clergy played out through art. Mozart, raised in a church choir, creates music that even the church finds hard to digest. And of course, we see cross-cultural works emerge. The opera Harem, based on the Ottoman dynasty, shows how Mozart was aware of and inspired by cultures beyond his own. As Mozart continues to produce unparalleled works during his short life, Salieri finds himself doing the only thing he can watch in awe. Isn't that the summary of life? While some constantly create, others are left to admire or critique. And maybe we shouldn't be so harsh on Salieri, because for most of us, admiration is all we can muster. Mozart left this world early, but Salieri kept living with his tragedy. He even attempted suicide in his old age and was committed to an asylum. And we learn this entire story through a confession to a priest, symbolically, a return to the faith he abandoned long ago. Even today, many choose not to create like Mozart, faithfully, from within. They chase external validation, just like Salieri. They crave approval, not fulfillment. And in doing so, they miss the pure joy of creating for its own sake. Maybe that's why, like Salieri, we struggle with the jealousy growing inside us. But real creation doesn't happen for others. It pours out of necessity from within, just like Mozart. To be Mozart or to be Salieri, both are parts of us. The question is, which part are we feeding? Mozart didn't live for applause. He didn't tailor his notes to royal preferences. He created because he had no other choice. It was either compose or be consumed by the chaos within. That's the purity of art. That's the burden of genius. That's the path we often fear to take. Many today post, speak, perform, not because they must, but because they hope someone likes, shares, or follows. But that's not creation. That's performance. And it fades as fast as it's uploaded. Mozart's legacy, on the other hand, endures not because he sought legacy, but because he ignored it. He lived a life on fire, with brilliance, vulnerability, pride, madness, and honesty. He trusted people who betrayed him. He gave melodies to a world that often didn't understand them. He died with debt, but left behind wealth in the form of truth through music. And Salieri? He lived. He was praised. He was accepted. But his soul, it echoed with unplayed notes and unspoken guilt. And that's perhaps a deeper death than Mozart ever knew. So what about you? Will you create because your soul can't stay silent? Or will you criticize from the sidelines, clapping just loud enough to drown your own longing? Mozart or Salieri? The genius who burned fast but bright, or the one who watched greatness with envy and fear? We all carry both, but every day we choose who leads. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Write in the comments, which one are you today, Mozart or Salieri? Until next time, may the rhythm of your heart and the music of your truth never go unheard.